about you and your relationship with the world, and you've discussed about it, you have talked about it here and there in your interviews also. Because I think the viewers across the state, there are several young and budding poets as well. So I'd like you to just respond to that as to how do you establish that a relationship with the word? You see, eventually, of course, there's a lot of churning that goes on at the experiential level before, of course, it takes that shape of form of a word. So could you please share that journey with us? I mean, if you could somehow concretize your creative process through words, I would appreciate it.
I think it's different for different people, and I look forward to hearing what Sanjukta and Sukrita have to say. But for me, it's always been the fact that there is a joy. I think most importantly for anyone who wants to write poetry, there needs to be a great joy about language and about wanting to hang around words. I do remember that from a very early stage in my life. The sense of wanting to hang around rhythm and sound and enjoying the great velocity of language, its ability to suddenly pause and then to start again, the fact that it was capable of diving and soaring and swooping and careening and all this, the danger and the unpredictability of language when you organize it into a poem. As a reader and as a listener, this excited me. So I'd say one of the prerequisites really is this excitement about language. I'd say that's important. It's not just about having something to say. Most of us would like to say something at some point in time, but we might choose to do it in a host of different ways.
Right.
For some people, there is an excitement about language. And I think for me, it was certainly that. The creative process, I won't say very much more about, other than the fact that it is about trusting language, following language. For me, it's always been about starting with an image and then following the image. And at the same time, remembering that there is much more to the creation of a poem than that original moment of inspiration, that there is also a great deal of craft and revision and work that goes into the making of a poem.
That's really crucial. That's really crucial. That's something. So thank you very much, Arundhathi. It was such a joy to listen to you. And at several junctures, it's like wow. And I mean, you're just flabbergasted. I mean, at the turn of expression suddenly, the choice of words and your language, goodness. I really need to engage with it really, really seriously now. Thank you very much. Thanks, Arundhathi. So now, yes, definitely. A round of applause. Thank you. And now we'd like to move on to Dr. Sukrita Paul Kumar. Born and brought up in Kenya, Sukrita Paul Kumar is a well-known poet and a critic, as most of us know. And she held Aruna Asaf Ali Chair, Delhi University till recently. Formerly a fellow at the Institute of Advanced Studies, Shimla. She is at present an honorary fellow of International Writing Program, University of Iowa, USA, fellow of Cambridge Seminars and Hong Kong Baptist University, Center for Developing Countries, Delhi University, as well as faculty, Dural Center at Corfu, Greece. She has published several collections of poems, such as Country Drive, Dreamcatcher, Untitled, Oscillations, Apurna, Folds of Silence, Without Margins, Rowing Together, Poems Come Home. And Hindustani translations by the eminent lyricist Gulzar and Hindi poet Savita Sen. Now, these are two bilingual books, actually. Poems Come Home, the original English poems alongside their Hindustani translations by Gulzar and Savita Sen. So her poems have been published in many journals and anthologies in India and abroad. And she has been an invited poet at many international literary festivals, including Vietnam, Bhutan, Kenya, Spain, England, and USA. She has given readings of her poems at various universities and institutions abroad. Her poems have been translated into many languages in India. She's got a huge profile, but today we would be interested to listen into her poetry. Ma'am Sukrita, it's all yours now.
Thank you very much, Roshan. I think we have known each other for a very long time, though we haven't met for quite a few years. Thank you very much for your beautiful introduction, and also thank you, Shulini team, and thank you, Manju, everybody who's put in so much of an effort to put us all together, which is a very valuable thing to me, to have a platform at this point of time, to be with you all, Arundhathi, with Sanjukta, with you, Roshan, and all of us getting together when there is a whole policy of social distancing going on very fervently. I think these moments matter, and also poetry bringing us together. I really value this. I would like to start with just a little preface which I wrote in for my book called Untitled. And this was a preface which was basically all publishers want a preface out of you when a book is ready. And I wanted to not write a preface. And then I wrote a little poem and called it a preface and sent it to the publisher. And I would like to share that. And I'm calling it Of Creative Anxieties. In the process of writing, I am ahead of myself always, and there is no looking back. The rest of the time, I am stalking myself, and there is no looking ahead. The issue is that of keeping pace. That's what I've been trying to do all through in my writing, to try to keep pace with I don't know what. Is it my own self? The realization of some self which is lurking always somewhere behind what we perceive as self. So the other poem, the next poem that I would like to read is to do with what happened in 2013 when something similar has happened recently in Chamoli. And I called this poem, and I'm reading it today. I wrote it in about 2014, but it's relevant today from the point of view of what has happened in Shimoli. Why that half smile, Shiva? That slight arch of the lip spelling irony? Long tongues splashing with snakes rising from torrents, your blue bust resting on the lifted muddy waters thickened with debris, and smell of death, wave after wave, rolling down in angry spurts, rubbing the holy rubble of divine abodes, myriad arms of Ganga, rising and descending in vengeful thunder, fingers pointing not at this one, nor at that one, hustling human beings and bundled in her gushing folds, stone houses toppling as cardboards, clouds busting in shame, heavens cracking and falling on their knees. Consort of Shiva moved out of her roofless shelter into an unabated wrath, offering protection to Lord of Destruction in hope of a new creation. Why that smile, Shiva?
Wonderful.
Thank you. From the same book called Country Drive, I read another poem which I call Draupadi on a Hunt. I am on the lookout. Is this where I might find what I'm looking for? Yes, this way, not that way. Draupadi stormed out of Mahabharat, became a squirrel, and climbed up the tree as did Manto's Toba Tek Singh. Look down. Is this Hindustan or Pakistan? Barbed wire between the two lovers, real as their love. On all fours do I crawl, holding on to the earth's call, not to fly, nor abandon them, not to forget the one and only, nor the rest of them, rumbling and whispering with all the tales and myths gurgling in the earth's belly. I am on the lookout.
Brilliant. Kya baat hai.
Thank you.
Lovely.
So there's another poem which is kind of to do with, actually, I won't talk about it. Women on a motorbike.
Okay.
Sisters and daughters, even mothers, are hurled into daily abuses, jokes, trapped in muscular gaze, frozen as soft targets in epics, dolls in cinema, excuses for duels, cause for battle in the past and the present, possessed as furniture, kept in vaults in the royal cellars of history, while Sita greets Savitri, singing songs of captivity, shedding tears of loss and regret. The two women on the motorbike, Lalbed and Akka Mahadevi, whiz past through centuries, multiplying in numbers as also in Shakti, each one searching her own path, her own tune. Thank you.
Lovely. It's beautiful. Beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you. This is a poem that came out of my visit to Baga, and I'd like to share this with you. At Wagah, I love you the most. The border, marked by the spectacle of stomping army boots, shining medals beating their chests into the rising and setting sun. The day becoming night and the night day, when the guards on both sides exchange bang, bang. I love you the most at Wagah, when the guns are raised to salute separation, division, rupture, when the neighbor dies and wears the shroud, becomes enemy all at once. My friend, you go away, only as a bird does flying in the free skies. When lines of hatred rise against prayer flags, Wagah happens. And I love you the most because you are on the other side of the border.
Kya baat hai, kya baat hai.
There's a poem that I thought I would share, which came out of my visit to Vietnam, the literary festival.
All right.
And these are called pagoda poems. After having visited the master pagoda there.
Right.
And so I wrote a whole series, but I'll just read a couple of them.
Sure.
The first one. 9 times over, the word nothingness emerges again and yet again in the 20-word poem by the master monk. The dragon, they say, descends into the sea, searching for meaning and spewing jewels that become rocks. Columns of light rise, dressing in stunning colors. Devils dancing in step with gods. All in all, adding to nothingness and making meaning. 2.
All right, sure.
What is real? Image of the bird fluttering in the sky, or the one still in the gushing river? The wavy moon in the water, or the one above that is steady, parallel, forever? These are philosophic meanderings, which I think I did after visiting these, particularly the Master Pagoda. And something happens to you if you are in that kind of an environment, and the probe that you undertake is actually beyond words, and you struggle to get the words, and then you start canceling them out into nothingness, ironically, to make meaning. And I have a lot of half-written poems which happen when you are amidst some gigantic Himalayan poem, kind of mountains on the one hand, or the ocean, the vastness of nature. And that's where you realize the in one sense, valueless words, and you start discovering the value of those words, which are just very concise and precise. And you discard the ones that you begin to realize have been only creating a din in your head. I think one of the things, I share with you, Arundhati, about this whole idea of our excitement of words, on the one hand, the magic that one discovers, and on the other hand, this whole hollowness of words, because they need to cancel out. They need to cancel out in order to maybe get into the arena of making meaning. So that's where I place silence in poetry, actually. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I think this is from Ma'am Manju Jaidka to all the panelists. Sukrita, a poem I have remembered since I read it in 1990s. And I quote, this is from your poem, I suppose. This is the fatal accident. Fatal accident. It was a fatal accident. My eyes met yours. Some moments breathe their last. Sukrita, it has remained. Sukrita, it has remained with me these 30 years. It was in your collection, brought out by Writers Workshop, I think. So, would you like to respond to that, please? What is this? What is this? These moments of breathing last,
Yeah. So, Manju, thank you for remembering this, because I think it's a very, very old little poemlet, if at all I could use that term. And I think there was a phase, and I get into these phases at times when I write very short poems. I don't call them haikus, but just a few words. And sometimes they come out of your actual experience, but what is actual experience? I don't know, because sometimes what happens in the mind is more actual than what happens actually, So, one operates in these kind of paradoxes in one sense. And I always feel that, when you actually meet someone, genuinely, really meet someone, and how those moments become, you go beyond time. You go beyond time, and you meet someone with such a kind of intensity that time doesn't hold any meaning anymore, right? So in that sense, to me, I think what I had captured in these lines was a lovely meeting I had with a stranger who I thought has become my lifelong lover. A stranger who goes away but stays with you forever, because he or she killed time at that time. Totally killed time.
And thank you, ma'am, Sukrita. I think you have addressed all my concerns, at least in the brief remarks that you made. So, and we don't have any questions, but we have vows, and viewers are mesmerized, and they're writing from Ashok Khosla, so wonderful. So thank you, ma'am Sukrita. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I'd like to now move on to Dr. Sanjukta Dasgupta, professor and former head Department of English and former dean, Faculty of Arts, Calcutta University. And she's a poet, a critic, and a translator. Now, she has published nearly 5 collections of poetry. The first one is Snapshots, and followed by Dilemma, First Language, More Light, Sita's Sisters. She's the recipient of numerous national and international grants, awards, and fellowships, and has lectured, taught, and read her poems and short stories in India, Europe, USA, and Australia. She was the chairperson of the Commonwealth Writers' Prize, United Kingdom. She is the member of the General Council of Sahitya Academy, New Delhi, and convener of the English Advisory Board, Sahitya Academy. She's also the president of the Intercultural Poetry and Performance Library at ICCR, Kolkata. She received the IWSFF Women Achievers Award, Kolkata in 2019, and she has recently received WEI Kamla Das Poetry Award, which was last year, 2020. So, and of course, she has a written book. She has authored, co-authored, edited, co-edited several books. But as for today, we are going to have Ma'am Sanjukta, reciting or reading out her poems to us. So, Ma'am Sanjukta, it is all yours now. Yes. Please unmute yourself. Dr. Sanjukta, please unmute yourself.
All right.
Yeah, you're audible now. Please go ahead. Yeah, you're audible. Please go ahead.
Audible, visible, yes?
You're
like
visible too. Yes, you are.
All right. So, yes, indeed, this is a moment of great pleasure and returning also to Shulini University events, because the first one that I was part of was to talk about Louise Gluck, who had just received the Nobel Prize. And that was such a challenge. Manju Jayatka made me do homework for 7 days, 24/7. And then I managed to put something
That's what she is known for.
Yeah. And there was no way of saying no to her.
Yeah.
So,
understandable.
And I'm glad to be back again. Manju and I go back a very long time. So do I with Sukrita, with whom also we all met at Hyderabad for the first time. We were all known as Americanists then.
All right. All right.
And then, of course, we drifted and did a lot of things. And I suppose we have been together too, because we are all in love with words, as Arundhathi pointed out, and how words can be so malleable if you are able to handle them. Those 26 alphabets, not too many. But each time we are using them, they take on a very different nuance. When Sukrita writes, it is very different from Arundhathi's, and mine, I hope, will also be a little distinct from the earlier poets who are very, very well known in their fields, and their poems were captivating this morning. Now, I will start with poems which I wrote recently. That was at the time of the unprecedented times, rather, of the COVID mess that we are still going through. And I will start with a poem called Healing Power. Gently, gently run your fingers on my forehead. Social distancing is not for us. Hold my hand. Let's form the human chain from the Arctic to the Antarctica. Do not tremble, do not cry, do not gasp, do not die. In our togetherness is our strength. Death can only threaten us before it dies. We turn to the earth only to return. Green shoots and leaves of grass reappear as death retires defeated. In this same mode of resilience, because we have suffered so many losses and the loss of the life we knew so well for decades, and suddenly we have reinvented ourselves and looked upon our very abnormal world and greeted it as the new normal. So this is my second presentation today. What a skewed world. When you say you love me, I feel you must have found out my bank account balance. When you say everything is all right, I'm sure something is wrong everywhere. When you say we are the best, I can sense we are going downhill. When you say we will conquer space, I know we are cramped for space in our hearts and homes. When the virus rages, we just compete with death counts. I know then nothing is under control. When you say our callous cavalier stances have created hotspots and containment zones, I know there are not enough ventilators. When you say, relax, we have reached the plateau, I know it is now the silence of the wasteland. It is now only sighs from graveyards. Yet hope rises in the doleful air, unfurling its wings of assurance. Just don't say anything anymore. Let silence heal. Let hope speak in its resonant, wordless, gentle voice.
Beautiful, beautiful. Wonderful.
I move on to my third poem, which is generally what my students like a lot, and it really changes the mood of the earlier two poems. It's called Dhoti Dance. And as you can understand, it's been inspired by the Lungi dance of the Chennai Express.
All right, all right.
So here it is, Dhoti Dance. Those were the days when it was not about twirling the moustache. It was not about dancing in nightclubs. It was not about challenging the choreographer. It was not about grabbing the chance to dance, the lungi dance. There were no music and drums as the dhotis and saris danced down the streets to face the imperial road of power. Soldiers striped their backs, soldiers handcuffed them, but they sat like boulders. It was the dance of satyagraha. It was the dance of non-violent non-cooperation that shook the foundations of the British Raj. The frail old man in a dhoti led the British such a dance that their pantaloons and pajamas slipped off as they pranced and danced. It was not chance pay dance. It was the determined dhoti dance. The youthful old man had choreographed the freedom dance. A nation danced to his tune. A nation danced towards freedom as Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, the frail brown man in a capri dhoti, led the dhoti dance. Thank you.
Wonderful.
That was
Thank
the
you.
third one.
Yeah.
And again, in a very, very different mood. This is
Sure.
the film Delhi Crime, which all of us may have watched. It was released on the web, I think, in March 2019. And of course, all of us know about Nirbhaya in 2004. The poem is titled The Hunted. It was just a bus ride home, Mama. Just a bus ride home at 10 that evening. But it was a bus full of hyenas. 6 of them, or 16, or were they 60? Even my friend pawed me like a hyena, while the others watched, licking their lips, saliva dripping from their wet, sloppy, lolling tongues. They pounced on me, they stripped me stark, they manhandled my helpless body parts. They bit me, slapped me, twisted my protesting arms. They raped me again and again and again into the recess from which one day my baby could have slid out into this beautiful world. The iron rod tore through the terrified tunnel of my trembling body. The rest is history. the police, the hospital, my recorded statements, the protests. I died far away from home. I died far away from my homeland. What a first trip abroad it was for me. But no, I haven't left. Each winter night in December, you may find me standing next to that ditch at midnight, standing on the lonely bus route, my blood dripping intestines spilling out. Tell me, what was my mistake? Friends, teachers, parents, politicians, and priests. Thank you. This was another. Do we have time for any more?
Yeah, I think if there could be a shorter piece. We have a minute and a half.
Okay, a shorter piece. I will move on from all these rather angry poems to this one, which I wrote last April. And April in Bengali is addressed as the season, as Boishak, the month itself.
Boishak.
And I think Baishakhi is well known all over North India. So Boishak, it's titled Oh Boishak. And you remember how horrendous last April was for all of us when we were absolutely sealed in our homes. Oh Boishak, purge and purify the ailing earth. Let the fierce blazing sun scorch the demons of death. Oh Boishak, I am rooted in a graveyard. Cardboard coffins lie everywhere. Even the grave diggers have gone. Bodies rot as crematoriums are few. Too many are suddenly falling asleep. Too many are leaving too soon. Pangs of hunger make them writhe and beg. Too many migrant feet trudge in search of home. Hunger haunts the ghostly towns and villages. Sleepless in cities as ghastly processions gasp in breathless agony everywhere. Nightmares ride like the furies. The echoes scream and scare each other. The violent, virulent virus goes viral. Can an invisible, blind, deaf and dumb droplet of death be the monarch of all it surveys? Karuna, compassion, Karuna, Karuna. Chant the healing, cleansing raindrops as they fall, and a pristine new year of hope is born. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so very much. Such a range. Lovely. Yeah, just a question from an attendee that anyone may answer, but prior to that, ma'am Sanjukta, to you, or rather to all the three panelists, in fact, I mean, we have really been grappling with this difficult time, and it has really been saddening. It has been discouraging. As poets, I think I'd be interested in knowing, everybody would like to know as to what were the coping strategies as poets, as writers, who in fact always are willing to address the challenges, contemporary challenges and problems that face them. So it's like being there in time, possibly seized, arrested, or whatever. What were your coping strategies, to all the three panelists as poets, please? Ma'am Sanjukta, you could start it off first.
I think, in the poems that I have just read, my answer lies there. And I consider writing poetry or writing a creative writing as my activism, because I can't go out there on the roads and hold banners and flags, not because I'm unable to do that, but I'm not such a public person as such.
All right.
And also at the same time, I'm quite scared. So for me, writing poetry, as Tagore would say, that he was quite terrified to go out there in processions and do things later on in his life. But I would also think that writing from home makes me feel more comfortable rather than going out there, which I could have or should have, but haven't yet done.
Yeah, Ma'am Arundhati, now it's over to you. Please.
I think it's difficult to know how to respond to that one. My initial response was to sit at my laptop and hammer out something on a daily basis until I realized that really there is a difference between being creative and being productive. I might have been productive, but definitely not being creative. So I eventually wrote a poem that was later published in one of these more recent lockdown anthologies, which says, and this is my answer to your question, the poem says, meaning won't save us, but rhythms will. And I think my own personal strategy was really to look for rhythms and to try and evolve those rhythms on a daily basis and not try to impose the same agenda on each day, because that simply wasn't working.
Wonderful. Ma'am Sukrita, please.
Yeah, I was in the process of writing a whole, kind of series of dialogues with Ganga. And I had gone and stayed at Rishikesh, beyond Rishikesh actually, right on the bank of the river. And I somehow developed a very deep relationship, like all of us, I think Indians do, because there is at various levels of our consciousness, Ganga operates, in some way or the other. And when you're facing it, and then you start having an inward kind of an interior dialogue with the river. And I was having it at a spiritual level, romantic level, at various levels. I was enjoying it. It was a world that I was creating for myself, to nest in, as it were. And then this pandemic happens. I come back to Delhi and pandemic happens and we are locked in. The entire series of dialogues transformed themselves. Of course, I tried to retain, I think I was trying to be spiritual there, but the hard reality of what pandemic was doing to people out on the streets, it was so hard hitting that one needed to totally change the tenor and tone of, even having a dialogue with mythological kind of the stories that were vibrating in the mind, they all disappeared. Of course, some of them acquire metaphorical value and you start looking at meaning in a particular way. But someday at another opportunity, I would share that. I have to polish them up a little more. But I wrote a whole, series of poems which were dealing with the hard reality of what was happening and what was the anguish of people who didn't have what we had as food, shelter, and everything. So I think it was that transformation that happened. But again, that is what the words did to one, because there was some relief there. It was a kind of, should I say, therapy or letting out or venting. So there is anger, there is sadness, there is a guilt. There is a guilt there. Why am I eating what I'm eating when others are starving? That kind of situation. And words help at that time. They become weapons. You also become confessional. It's also a certain kind of a suicidal thing also. You want to kill yourself, and words can do that to you. So
just a brief one before we close. There's this question from one of the sorry, this is from Ma'am Manju Jaidka. Sorry, coming from one attendee, and anyone may answer that. When you write poetry, do you think of the meter and the devices you use beforehand? Anyone can take that, please. Arundhati, would you like to take that?
Would.
Sure.
Do I think of it beforehand? Not necessarily. No, in fact, I don't. There may be times I want to try my hand at rhyme and I might do it, but that's not the way it usually works for me. I follow the diktat of the poem, the imperative of the poem, and the way it wants to unfold. And often a poem unfolds in a way that you never anticipated. So there is a combination. It's not entirely the poem, unfolding. It's also you having your dialogue with the poem. The two go hand in hand. But it's not a premeditated
Premeditated kind of
decision
thing. Okay.
that this
okay.
has to be in a sestina
Yes.
or a villanelle or whatever. No.
Yeah, and then there is this observation, that's there. Poetry makes nothing happen. Would you comment on that? There is some observation, and your comment is being elicited. Ma'am Sanjukta, would you like to take that?
Oh,
Poetry makes nothing happen.
yeah, that's Auden. And I will respond to Auden with Shelley. And that would be poets are the unacknowledged legislators of the world. Poets are the dreamers, the visionaries who are showing a way out of claustrophobia, out of the known spaces. And now, as the youngsters say, poetry enables you to think out of the box. Yes? And that is the way I would like to look at it. Thank you.
All right. With that, we would like to call it a day. Thank you very much, Arundhathi. It was such a pleasure, such a delight to listen to you, Ma'am Sukrita, Ma'am Sanjukta. See, your being here in this panel, this coming together, let me tell you, is not only going to benefit the young budding poets across different nooks and corners of Himachal, but also the scholars. We have 3 contemporary poets writing so powerfully. So we work with the community of researchers across various universities in our state here. And we have got, such lovely poetic treasures coming from 3 different, very rich and remarkable sources. Arundhathi, Ma'am Sukrita, and Ma'am Sanjukta. Thank you all. Thank you very much. Thank you, Team Shulini. Thanks, Ma'am Jaidka.